Hi, just grabbed a trial version of the latest version of Alias Surface 2017, and just thought I'd do some tutorials. Some students have been asking for some tutorials anyway, so I thought it's a good opportunity. So I've quickly set up something to start modelling with, and I'm going to focus on just doing body side and transitions into wheel arches. So just wait for this to boot up. And if I just open that. Okay, so this is just something I've set up where I've knocked in some shoulder lines, character lines, and some sill lines and stuff from rocker panels. So that's kind of, I want to build these body panels and then how they transition into the wheel arches. And what I need to do now is, these are literally just circles. So any circle never really has. Hang on. Circles, wheel arches are never just dead vertically flat. Then they always kind of kick in at the bottom, and they always pass the tyres for suspension and stuff anyway. So what we need to do is recreate these with a curve that allows us to pull them in at the bottom and manipulate them in that view whilst they're perfect circles. So to do that, just to demonstrate something, if I let's just just to demonstrate something about the curves for reasons unknown to me, if I get a curve and snap to this, you'll see there's a little blue line here. Now the point here on the right hand side of the circle is the start and the end point of that curve. So if I was to create a surface from that now, let's get a multi-surface draft and just draft that, and just drag that out. You'll notice that there's a start and end point there. Now this will create all kinds of problems when you're trying to build to that edge or that curve. So, because you'll have to think how you're going to break this into four-sided shapes, and if you've got something that wants to meet from up here down to here, that's effectively two sides. So to get around that, if I just delete that surface, I always just pick those curves and Control 5 on the keyboard. And then what I'm going to do is just literally rotate it in Y 90 degrees. And then you'll think nothing's happened, but then when you try and snap a curve, that point is now at the bottom. So just going to do that for this one as well. Control 5, and then rotate that 90 degrees. So now, if I use the Fit Curve tool, set that to 5 degree or 6 degree, make it nice and even. That's not even 7, do 7, just so it's nice and even control point wise. You'll notice start and end point is at the bottom. So if I were to pick that curve, I need to delete the history first. Once I've done that, I can then select these points and I should then be able to move them in to create what will become the flat spot of the wheel arch. But with that said, that's going to cause me all kinds of problems, because I've tried to do it off a full circle. Now basically what you want to do is just create a curve that's going to create the bottom edge of the wheel arch. So I'm just going to move that up on one side just so that the car's kind of got a raising silver line. This depends on whatever your design is going to be, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this curve, and then I'm going to use this tool here. So when you select on it, it cuts and trims based on the curve. So select a curve to section, so I'm going to select that one. And the arrow indicates what side you're going to keep. And in the orthographic view, I'll then use that curve. Press go, and then use that curve. Click twice on that, and it's kind of cut it off at that point. And the reason why I had to cut twice is because the start and end point of that curve is at the bottom, so it's got one and the other side of the curve. But now, as you'll see, that's created what will make quite a good point of reference. Now I'm going to do the same thing again for the front. Might as well do it all at once. So, and select that curve, go back into the orthographic view, press go, and then again just trim that out. So now they're still circles, but I've trimmed them to where I want them to be. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a fit curve now on each one of those. So I want that to be, so that's nice and even. So I've got 2 at the top, 2 in the middle, 2 at the bottom. CVs, which makes it nice and easy to manipulate whilst maintaining the shape. But I'm going to change it to 6, so I've got this one is centre at the top of the actual circle, just so I know where the centre of the circle is going to be. I'm going to do the same again for that one. So what you end up with now is a circle and a fit curve. Now if I try and move that fit curve, it won't let me do anything because it keeps, with its history, it just wants to keep snapping back to that circle. So select those fit curves, delete construction history, and now when I select the fit curves, I can then manipulate them and move them around. So with that done, I'm going to delete the circles because I don't need those anymore. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to pull these CVs around until I get something that resembles the side of a wheel arch. So I'm just going to pull the bottom ones in, and then just the bottom 2, middle mouse and drag, and that way you get what resembles a nice that's all. Right, okay, now the next thing I want to do is, really I should have kept the circles from the other side. So I'm just going to grab these 2 from the other side of the model, and what I want to do, I want to use the centre point of that curve for the resetting that pivot. Same for the one at the back. Let's set the pivot back to the middle, and then I'm going to select these curves and I'm going to copy and paste, and then I'm just going to scale up based on the pivot bin in the middle. So now it's basically creating an offset of that fit curve. Now I've done that, which I should have done in the first place. I'll delete those because it's circles. And then I'm just going to take the top ones and move them very slightly. Personal preference, but hey. So that creates the curves that are going to create my flat spot on the side of the wheel arch. So these two curves are the curves I'm going to build into the side of the car. Now, it would be easy to just kind of make the side of the car and then cut a big hole out and then blend to a trimmed edge, but you want to kind of avoid that wherever possible. So let's say I'm just going to create the top of the shoulder of the car in one big sweep, but I'm just going to add a bit of shape to it first. So I'm doing all this on the fly. I haven't like sketched anything out or anything. It's purely to demonstrate how to go about creating some surfaces. So anyway, I'm going to put the explicit control on, and I'm going to. These are 3-degree curves, so I'll just leave them at 3 degree and leave spans at 1. And that's my first surface I've done. And that's fine. The zebra is nice and straight. That's all good. So now, like I said, I want to avoid kind of having a big side and then blending from the large. What I want to do, I want to build everything manually with 4-sided surfaces. So that will be a blend to the wheel arch from that crease. And I want to try and get this one dead center. So let's go in the side view. And just get those strokes. That's pretty good. But I actually want that to be center. Oops. Just move that as closely as I can get it by eye. So I'm basically going to create a network of curves aiming to get this into 4-sided patch basically. So the main thing you want to work out now is what you want the body side to do. So if I do something along these lines, I'm going to create this surface in the middle here next. So maybe let's make them 3-degree curves. Now I always do 1-degree curve and then change the number to 3 here to give me equally spaced CVs. And once I've done that, I can then just move them all at once, and it just gives you a nice evenly spread curve, nice CV layout, patch layout. So you could do it. So I've got my curves actually set to 3. It's supposed to be to that. So with it set to 1, by clicking 1, oops, by doing that, what is it doing? That creates a 1 degree with one span, and then, as you can see, just add CVs by upping the degree. And you want to avoid adding spans wherever possible. Everything wants to be degree curves. So if I want, say, the widest part of the car to be here, so let's play around with these CVs to kind of achieve the desired surface that I want to achieve. And you want to try and keep your CVs nice and evenly spaced to get the best possible surface. So for now, I mean, this will all change as you go through the process, but so using the explicit control, these are all set to 3 degree in U and V. So these all say they're free and there's no issues, it doesn't say it's failed or whatever. And then it should give me a nice straight surface, and that's partly because I moved these CVs at the same time. If I was to move one side, like if I move that one side individually, and I haven't moved it the same distance as those ones over there, it creates like a tapering, as you can see in the zebra stripes, because it's going from one profile to another, which is fine if that's what you want to achieve. But if you want a nice even surface to start with, it's always best to kind of do each opposite end together, and it gives you a nice even spread on CVs. I find that always helps. So as you can see, that's actually, let's put it back to where it was. And just the slightest movement of these CVs affects these zebras. So literally a thousandth of a millimetre. Anyway, that said, so there's first surface. Now we kind of want to block in this bottom surface next. Now, for the purpose of what I've got in my head, I want to have these 2 points pretty much vertically lined up, which they're clearly not at the minute, so I'm just going to scale this curve down so that these CVs here and here are lined up vertically. And then what I want to achieve is this crease to bulge out from the body side, and just the best way to do that is just to model it and just show you. So I'm also going to set these to 3 degree, and again, like with the first surface, I'm just going to quickly add a little bit of form to that surface, and I'm going to keep it 3 degree because they're all 3 degree curves, and I'm not aligning to anything, so all these are all set to 3 because I'm not building off another surface yet. So that gives me some nice straight surfaces to work with. Now I want to start thinking about getting from here to here, and what exactly I want that to do. Now currently this CV is further in this direction than the one above it. So if I were to say pick this curve, do a 3 degree, and then I use my align tool, set that to G2. So first CV is tangent, second CV is G2 curvature, and then the third, if you had enough CVs to allow for it, the third would be a G3 curvature. So when I go to my align tool, for example, I've got position G0, tangency G1, curvature G2, and then G3 curvature. So I'm going to use G2. I'm just going to align that curve to that edge of that surface. Now, as you can see, because of the curvature of that surface there, those CVs pull in, and then I end up with this kicking out at the bottom, and then, which is fine at the minute, but what is happening here is that curve there, that CV is actually passing, it's crossing over the curve, whereas that CV is on the left hand side of the curve. This CV is on the right hand side of the curve. You want to avoid that at all costs, really. So with that in mind, the way you want to go about doing this is you want to kind of guess and play around with where you want the this middle surface to start and end, and it'll make more sense in a second. So if I just quickly put in another curve, and if I just delete this curve that I've just aligned, because it creates too many issues in the long run. So I've created 3 new curves, and which are these 3, and all I'm going to do is eyeball it for now. I'm just going to set all these 3 curves to G3 and manipulate this one first, so I'm just going to pull them out slightly, and then I'm going to align the vertical curves first to the surface above, so using the square edge. You'll see what happens with the curves, which is fine for now. We'll come back to that, to this side. So you can see that is literally, if I zoom in, that has gone to the other side of the curve relative to that CV, which is easily rectified by literally just grab that CV, pull that in, and now you see that these 2 CVs are now on the left hand side of the curve, which is what we want. And then I'm just going to manipulate this CV at the back here, so that these 2 on the left hand side. So you can start to see what that effect is going to be. And also you start to get an idea as to what this transition is going to start having to come back out to when it gets to the wheel arch, because whatever we do with these surfaces, I've obviously got to blend back to that wheel arch. So now the purpose of why I've split this up into another surface is so that I can then do another surface below that, which is the transition to this crease here. So if I now select these 2 curves that I've just put in just, I can then use the align tool to align these 2. But whereas before I had one curve with the CVs crossing the path, here I've got 2 curves, one with the CVs on the left and then one with the CVs on the right hand side of the curve. So basically I've just split that one curve into 2. That's basically all I've done. And because this curve is aligned to this one, hence why that's got a purple edge highlighted, if I manipulate these, it manipulates this one, which then in turn manipulates the one below, because this curve is aligned to this one, and then this one is aligned to this one. So because it's got history, you can always tweak and refine these until the nth degree until you're happy with it, which is what you want. But now you can start to see what's going to start happening here. Now, as that is currently, it's kind of taller here and shorter here for this transition, this blend. And I'm thinking I want this one to be kind of raising to the rear of the car. So I'm just going to rotate that up until it's kind of tapering for the sake of argument. And then I'm just going to select these two CVs, and I'm just going to set the pivot first. So the pivot is now that green CV, and I'm going to snap to that CV. Now you think, oh no, it's ruined everything. But don't need to worry. You can literally just adjust the first CV, and everything will update, provided it'll update trying to maintain that curvature that you initially set. And because I've moved that in 3D space, I kind of have to correct it in XYZ. So just go through the process of correcting those. So that's all good. Tweak the bottom one again. Now it'll always snap into a position where it maintains curvature with the hierarchy of these curves. So you'll notice when it does snap, don't worry about it, it's just the align tool basically realigning those CVs so they still maintain curvature. So let's start to build something with those now. So if I get square tool, I'm going to build off the square edge, not the curve, and I'll set that one to curvature. And then I'll just set the other edges to 3. So that means that this edge is built within curvature and therefore shouldn't have any creases or unwanted discrepancies in the surface. So if I toggle the model and then shade, you should see that that looks like one surface. Nice and smooth. Zebra stripes, pretty good. Nice highlight. But when you look at the patchwork, it's 2 surfaces. So put the model back on where you see all the curves, and then I'm going to do another square, again using the square edge to build off, not the curve. And then now edge number 3, I don't want it to be within curvature because I want that to be a crease which will then be filleted later on. But in terms of getting the initial surfaces and proportions and form right, you want to leave that just a dead sharp edge. So number 3 is just set for 3, or you could set it to position. But I'll leave it at 3 for now. And then obviously number 1 is curvature. So, and Alias is happy with the way that works because we've spent the time to align all the curves first. And then the good thing is, because the curves are aligned, if I manipulate one, it'll update on the others. So I can just tweak that and it'll update the other curves which are there, therefore in turn update the surfaces. So I can just pull that in and it'll play around with that. And you could play around with the distance between these curves here and the wheel arch to allow you more room to get your transition in. and that's a case of just going through the process of designing, modelling based on whatever you've designed, but for the purposes of this, you'll get the idea. So I'm now going to start to think about, let's just see what that looks like in the zebras, and then I'm going to tessellation, I'm going to put accurate and quality, draw precision, just bump that up. What was it draw? Also, you can go to anti-aliasing and turn that on, and then that will get rid of all the frayed edges along the edge of the surfaces, and you see now they're crisp, and it gets rid of that, so you can get a better idea as to actually what the surfaces is doing. Okay, tolerance, that's what I wanted. A nice low tolerance. The lower that number, obviously the better your graphics card has to work, and your CPU and all that jazz, but that's a relatively simple surfacing to do. So now let's think about the transition into the wheel arch. So like I said earlier, you need to think laterally, and you have to build these things manually, and you want to maintain a network of patches that is four-sided. So you can see here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I need to resolve this in a way that gives me 4 edges. This gets a bit complicated, so you start off with the easy bits. So let's pick these curves and let's make them all 3 degree, and then this CV down here I'm just going to move so it matches up with the intended end of the wheel arch. So I'm just going to bring that down. Align this one to that square edge. Align this one to that square edge. And I'm going to try and keep these as straight as possible, just so it's a really nice square patch. Same again for this one. And again, I just want to kind of keep this as straight as possible. I know these vertical ones here are a bit wonky, but you can spend the time sorting your curve network out. I'll just quickly pull these ones in so it's a bit straighter. But yeah, spend the time sorting that out based on what your designs are. So now you can see how this patch is starting to build up, and already you're starting to build up quite a lot of patches. And then yeah, we'll see how we get on with this. So again, it's just going to do squares all the way around. So number 2, edge number 2 needs to be curvature, and everything else just needs to be free. It 3-degree curves have been used and 3-degree surfaces are built off 3-degree surfaces. So all in all, everything's going pretty well so far. Again, just go through the process of doing this again. Number 3 has failed. So it's telling me 3-degree isn't enough for edge number 3. Though U is generally edge 1 and 3, and V is generally 2 and 4, because it works opposite. So if I up that one, you see that's fixed that, and that's now 3, but that means that that's required a 4-degree edge there. But then my curvature has begun to fail, so it's now requiring a 5-degree curve to fit that 3-degree surface there. But it's all because of building off that thick curve. So I want to keep these numbers as low as possible. Don't want to be adding any spans at all wherever possible. And you could try rebuilding number 3 and see if that helps. But in that case it hasn't. Yeah, so that's where it's happiest anyway. For going any lower, it's not happy at all. An A-class modeler could probably achieve a perfect surface in there based on moving the hull, CV hull. But what probably also does not help is the distance I'm allowing for that transition to blend. It's quite a small surface area for that transition to blend in there. And also on top of that, it's how we've dealt with this sharp crease in here for now. So that probably doesn't help. So I'm going to actually really quickly just try and rectify this a bit. So set the pivot to here. I'm just going to drag. Oh god, I don't want that to happen. Broken it. Right, it's not undoing for whatever reason. Oh god, you gotta hate Alias sometimes. Delete that surface. Right, where's that curve gone? For some reason that's now moved. Right, okay, let's rebuild that. Let's delete that. What was supposed to happen was, notice there's a curve there floating around. Don't know what happened there. So let's get these curves and then set the pivot to there. Move. Right, for some reason it's moving. Oh, it's because I know why. It's moving every single pivot to the same place when I snap to something. So we'll scrap that idea, but I'll just move them horizontally. And then I'll have to just update them. So at the minute, that surface basically has got a history with that curve, but that curve and that surface are built off that surface there. And that's because that happens until I've rectified that CV. So if that happens, don't panic. It's just you've got a CV, it needs to be reattached. So I'm just going to move that one CV back onto that surface, and then it will update accordingly. But again, I want to keep that as straight as possible. So that's slightly out. So now I've given myself a lot more room to do this transition when I do it again. So Alias for you. So that's a 3 degree, and I'll realign that. I'll realign it to that surface edge. Then take 2. So everything's happy with that. Be careful of your settings, because it'll always pick up on the last surface you created. So don't forget to change that back down to the lowest one you want. Okay, so now those stripes look nice, and that's all good. And because these are aligned, I should just be able to move these and they should just update. Yep, so just want to spread these out so it's nice and even, and unless you want a really aggressive sharp curve in this. Right, suddenly I've just put this onto time lapse because I went through about 45 minutes of going through this process here where I'm trying to manually build every surface from that vertical edge on the side of the body, and you'll see later on, once I just go past this, that this didn't work out the way I was trying to mod it like this. It just wouldn't work. I didn't like it. And as you watch it, the main issue was I'm trying to keep the patch layout of 4 degrees. Patch layout of 4 sided surfaces. But where you come to this hole currently above the surface I'm working on is a 5-sided hole, and trying to fill that hole whilst keeping nice, even, straight zebras stripes. It just wasn't working at all. So I thought I'd keep this process in so you can see just see what I tried to do to get it to work. And so currently here, I was having issues trying to get curvature for two adjacent edges to this surface I'm working on now. And yeah, I spent probably about 10-15 minutes just trying to get this one surface to work, and it just wasn't the case. I tried using the Move CV tool, which is at the bottom right hand corner of the screen with a little red box around it currently, and that just allows you to manipulate rows of CVs, and you can move them to whatever you specify, like i.e. 1,000th of a millimeter. But yeah, the results of putting all this effort in for doing this method, it just wasn't working. As you can see in the next few minutes, I'm trying to work out where to put these 4-sided surfaces. And so I was just projecting a curve onto the surface where you can see that now that allows me to align a curve to that surface there. And yeah, tried quite a few routes, and it was getting quite late in the night, like 11:15 I think it said at this time. And I just thought, it's just not working. I'm kind of ended up with these little awkward little triangles, and you'll see that says it's in curvature, but you see the zebra stripes have gone a bit crazy, and they weren't flowing particularly nice at all. So although it says yes it's in curvature, doesn't necessarily mean it's correct in terms of its surface. And then I had this issue where I'm trying to like second guess the blend from positive to negative, and you can see now how the zebra stripes have started to dip and they're not following the rest of the side of the body. So it caused quite a lot of issues, and it required a little bit of thought as to what would be a better way to resolve this surface and this blend into the wheel arch. And this, as you can see, clearly wasn't giving me a nice surface. So when you see that rendered, you'd have some crazy highlights that just, well, wouldn't do the design justice. So, and here you can just see it just got out of hand, really. So bear that in mind. It's sometimes you'll do something and you'll think it's not quite right, and you're better off just starting from scratch, because you could, like in this case, I wasted 45 minutes trying to do it this way, and it just didn't work out at all. So with that in mind, I even tried building toward the surface now, as you can see, and it's just getting messy in terms of surface patches and awkward little holes to fill. I think this is about the best it got, but just above the right of the wheel arch, you can see where that zebra stripe splits into two, and it just didn't look right at all. So then I thought about carrying on these main body surfaces. So I maintain a really nice clean zebra stripe, and then I'll then trim them, rebuild them, and then blend later on, which is where I'll go back to real time in a second, and we'll carry on from here, where I basically just started again. So I thought it'd be helpful for you to see the process of it not working out. And total runtime for the whole modelling process, including this 45 minutes of ruining the body side, the video was recorded at 3 hours and 47 minutes. So that's how long it took to do the whole model.